I'm joined by a Bellator welterweight, very exciting fighter. I'm a big fan of his work. It's Oliver Enkamp, who's kind enough to join us today. First off, how's everything, man?
Doing good, doing good. I had some issues with a bit of injuries during my training camp, but everything is moving in the right direction. So I look positively on the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. So speaking of that, right? I guess it was just like a little accident that you had in the preparation going up to the fight.
Yeah, actually several accidents. So it started last summer. And me and my manager started talking about booking a fight. I had my last fight in May last year. So like a month or so after that, we started planning for my next one. And as soon as I got in the planning of my fight camp, I went to another gym to spar, and a guy rolled in for a heel hook and popped my knee. And then I had to work with my knee injury for like 2 months or so, and then started to feel good. And I booked this fight that was going to be in Dublin, and then I was gonna face this grappler, the submission grappler. So I went to a submission expert, started rolling with him, and then I had another injury, unfortunately, cartilage tear in the ribs. And then I went back to rehabbing, and I started working around this. And now, as we got closer to the fight, everything felt good, and I got my training in. But then I had my last injury, which was another part of the body, and it was just too close to the fight to keep going. So right now I'm scheduled for a surgery, actually, minor surgery. It's going to be a short recovery time, but it's going to be in a few weeks. And then if I'm lucky, I'll still have a shot to get my fight before summer. Yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of injury is it? It's like what kind of injury?
Yeah, so actually I overextended my elbow joint, but it happened like 4 times within 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it was already damaged, and then it happened again and again. And the last time, a few fragments got loose. So I did X-rays, and they could see like 6 fragments, I guess bone pieces or cartilage or something that shouldn't be in the joint. So they need to take them out surgically now.
Absolutely.
So,
And are you in a lot of pain right now?
no, not really. So I think what happened is because the body is such an amazing machine, it adapts so quickly to your circumstances. So these small pieces seem to have gotten like capsuled in somehow. So they move around. So they're at good places right now where they don't stop me. In the beginning, they would get stuck in the joint, so my arm would freeze up, and that would be incredibly painful. But right now, I've been able to do some boxing and some wrestling, actually, and I can't feel it at the moment. So it's very good.
You're sort of targeting like a summer fight. That's kind of what you're aiming for.
Yeah, so they have this European card in Paris, May 12th. So if everything goes well in the surgery, that might be an option.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll see what the next opportunity is.
For sure, man. And I'm sure it gives you a chance, having some time off to sort of dial it all in, right? Mentally,
Sure.
physically, maybe certain aspects of camp, you could sharpen up the tactical approach to it, maybe the weight cut, because I know that's sort of been
Sure.
a bit
Yeah.
tough, right? And speaking
Yeah.
of the weight cut, I wanted to ask you, because I saw an interview you did some months back, and it seemed like
Mm.
the weight cut you had for your last fight was absolutely terrible. And
Oh
it
yeah.
obviously had an effect on your performance, like you said, right?
Totally.
Um,
Yeah.
I would never imagine, that you would want to go through that again, right? So I'm sure
No.
changes are going to have to be made. Have you started to think about what kind of changes you would have to make for it to be a smoother process?
100%. I think because I've had such an easy time with my weight cuts previously, I've never been a big proponent of weight classes and cutting weight. So I never really cut a lot of weight for my fights. But during the years I've grown more muscular, so it's another kilo to cut every year, but all at the same time I've been more accustomed to the whole process. So in one way it becomes harder, but in another way it becomes easier. And I had such an easy weight cut if we go back 2 fights ago, and that was in the back of my mind, and I was like, yeah, this is so no problem. So I think I was too relaxed to the whole process. I didn't take it seriously enough in my last fight. And so I stopped releasing water at 83.6 kilos. And so I had to cut 7 kilos. That's like 15 pounds in the last 12 hours.
Wow.
And I've never done such a big cut. I don't know for other fighters how much they cut, if that's a normal process to them, maybe it is, but I've never been through that big amount of weight in such a short period of time. So the cut itself wasn't that bad, but I didn't have enough time to recover. So that was the problem. I got these cramps all the time during fight day, so my body wouldn't absorb as much electrolytes and fluid as it had to. And when the fight came around, I had no energy in any anaerobic, like in the clinch or the wrestling. My gas tank would just crash after like 30 seconds into the fight. So I mean, you learn from everything. So when I was there, it was like going through hell. But after now, when I can look back at the whole experience, I just see what lessons I can take from it. And it was a very valuable lesson and a mistake that I won't do again.
For sure. And since you just brought up the last fight, let's get into that a little bit. Since it was the last time we saw you in action. And since we are on the topic of the weight cut, right? You said that you were pretty much so exhausted that you didn't remember much of anything, right? From the time you walked out to the time you got back to the locker. If it was that bad, I mean, how at all were you able to get through that fight, man? Like how'd you get through it?
So I spoke to some people.
Mark Leminger's a tough guy too.
Oh yeah. I spoke to some people who have more experience with concussions than me. I've always been a very analytic fighter. I'm a technician. I like to study and fight smart. So I haven't taken a lot of damage during my career. And the only time I've been really knocked out was like a flash knock before that, where I was aware of everything like a split second before I got punched. So there wasn't really a knockout. But now I got rocked from 2 separate occasions. I think once in the first round and once in the second, or if it was both in the second round. Either way, when those punches hit me, I think what happened during the weight cut is that you lose some fluid that protects your brain, because you release water from your whole body, and it's like a protective shield for your brain. So that's just my theory. And when I got hit, I got concussed, and my body would just work automatically. So I don't know if I was aware when it happened or if I lost my memory after the fight, because I would just go on instinct. So when I got rocked, my legs went yellow, and I just grabbed onto whatever I could, and that was his leg. I grabbed a single leg. I went into wrestling mode, and I managed to survive the second round. And when I come out in the third round, I have no energy, and I'm just looking for a quick finish. So I throw my spinning hook kick, which is kind of one of my signature moves. But he steps in at the same time, and my body just automatically goes through these moves without me thinking about the steps. And I lock out this inverted triangle that I actually won my professional debut with 10 years ago. I never trained this technique at that point, so I invented it during my professional debut 10 years ago. I just made the connections with my leg, and I hoped it would work, you know, and it did. And then I started using that submission, and I've done it so many times. So I managed to pull it off, being rocked and exhausted in the third round of my last fight. And that just proved to me how important it is with repetitions, what we call the muscle memory. Because my brain wasn't really aware, or I didn't have any logical thinking at the time, but my body knew exactly what to do. And I can only attribute that to all the repetitions I've done with this submission. So whenever your teacher or coach tells you to just do the drills, you know, just do them, it's right.
They're not lying.
It's not lying, no.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, I got to say, I've never really heard a story quite like that before. So, I mean, you know, I guess that's just another way to reinforce that, you know, drilling techniques and repetition, that sort of reinforces how important that is, man. So I think that's an interesting story.
Just let me add something. I think I might have been aware during the fight and during the victory speech and the interviews, and then I lost the memory afterwards. Right. This is what I've been told can happen from people who are more experienced than me with concussions and how the brain works. So because when you look at my my interviews, I went to the media room straight after the fight. I'm answering all the questions, and when I look at it, the videos from the interviews and the media, everything feels familiar and the memories come back. But then when I got into the locker room, that's when everything disappeared. So I think I lost the memory in hindsight, but I got it, or after the fight, but I got it back when I watched those events take place in a video replay.
Right. And so it seems like you've spoken to some experts about this. Have you? Have you sat down with somebody, or maybe communicated with some people that have given you some theories on what might have happened?
Like not any brain surgeons, just other fighters and coaches who have had similar experiences.
Yeah, fair enough. So when you look back at the fight, right, when you watch it, like you said, right, everything starts to become familiar when you actually see how it played out. When you look at it like on a TV screen, right, what do you make of his performance? You know, did anything surprise you about him? And what did you also make of your performance looking back on it?
Well, let's start with my performance. Because I was exhausted, I couldn't do anything. So I was super disappointed. I can't be happy with a win if I'm not happy with my performance, because to me, it's all about the process and not about the result. I don't really care about wins or losses. I care about improving my craft, my skills with each fight. So the fights are like milestones for me as a receipt of my work, and I can see myself getting better with each fight. That's how I see them. But when I didn't have any energy in the gas tank, I couldn't do anything, you know. It's like Mike Tyson says, like, everyone becomes a coward when they're fatigued. I didn't become a coward, but I wasn't made able to perform or even finish him in a way that I wanted to. Now, that was just incredible to me that I managed to pull a submission off, because as soon as we got in the first clinch after like 20 seconds or even shorter, and I felt I had no energy, I just had a feeling of hopelessness. Like, how am I supposed to win this fight if I can't even, you know, have the energy to hold on to him? So I was in survival mode. My focus was more on enduring than on winning. So I was not happy at all with my performance, even though it was a great submission that won awards for like submission of the year and stuff. And it got shared and went viral on Twitter and stuff. So it was a great result. When we come to the opponent, he was way more aggressive than I would have imagined. He just charged forward straight away, pushed me against the cage, and then got into the clinch. Also, he had no fear throwing his hands. Like I had the idea that he would be more like cautious, like to pick his punches maybe, but he just charged forward. So that surprised me. But that also gave me a lesson, like don't underestimate anyone's game plan, because they're not going to be the same fighter that you see in their last fights. They're going to tailor their style against you. So, yeah.
The exhaustion, I guess you could sort of boil it down to. Was that the first time that had ever happened to you in a fight?
Yeah, I mean, I've been exhausted many times before. I've had
Have you ever
other
felt like hopeless, like you said? Because you said you felt
not in
hopeless.
this way, no. Yeah, because that was a horrible feeling. Like the only thing I want to do when I step out there is to entertain, you know, to show my art for the audience and make exciting fight, you know. I'm really concerned with making a good, exciting fight for the fans every time. And when I felt that I had no energy, I'm not capable of doing that, you know. So that was the feeling of hopelessness. But like the only similar experience I've had before is when I did maybe my fifth or sixth professional fight here in Sweden at a local show. I was supposed to fight around 7 p.m. They told me, but then all the fights previous to mine just got finished like this. So they come in like an hour early, and I was just starting to warm up.
Wow.
And they tell me it's your next. And I'm like, what? Because I'm a slow starter, so I need a long warm up, you know.
It was a historic night that you were on the unlucky side of, right? Where there was all finishes, right? I'm guessing that's what it was.
Yes. So I had to do my warm up in the cage in the first round, and I just hit a wall of exhaustion right away, you know, because the guy I fought in this fight, he was this little tank who just came forward and he wouldn't stop punching, so I couldn't stop kicking. And after the fight, I was so exhausted, I just went into the bathroom and I started vomiting.
Wow.
So yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Talk about pulling one out. Yeah.
Let
me ask you this. Did it feel like you almost, not like you almost had to win, because you still, you got a lot of wins behind you and all that. But did it feel important to get a win and to bounce back strong after the Kyle Crutchmer fight?
Yeah, definitely. Because I was on a 3-fight winning streak, so I had a really good momentum built up. And I felt that I didn't do myself justice going into the Kyle Crutchmer fight, because that whole fight camp was a disaster too. I had a back injury and a cartilage tear in the ribs. And I went into the fight with those injuries, but I didn't want to pull out because I invested so much time and energy going to United States, having my fight camp there for 5 weeks, and then I didn't want to just cancel the fight and go home. So I thought, fuck it, we'll just take the fight, and whatever happens, happens. So I didn't do myself justice, my performance with the bad fight camp.
For
So
sure.
I felt that I really need to bounce back, not because of anyone else's expectations, but my own in this last fight. But that was even worse because of this weight cut we just discussed. So now when we come to this last fight that I was going to do in Dublin in February 25th, I had those two last fights in the back of my mind, and I thought so long and hard of still doing this fight on February 25th. But then my coaches reminded me that you should really get a good performance so you will be happy after the fight, you know. And I realized, yeah, maybe I shouldn't go in injured this time again. So,
yeah. And listen, you seem like yeah, absolutely. And you seem like a really nice guy, honestly, I gotta say, just from meeting you. But is it frustrating, like deep down inside? Is there something deep down inside of you that's frustrating about you not being able to perform and having, these injury setbacks? Or maybe when you can perform, you're injured. Like, is it a frustrating thing for you that maybe you haven't shared? Like, has it been, because I know you got fighters like Dominic Cruz that went through some injuries for a stretch of years, and it was tough for him mentally. Like, what, when you want to be out there, but your body just isn't ready, like, what does that feel like?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it's absolutely, it's frustrating. Um, I'm always trying to focus on the things that are within my control. And that's like the warrior mindset to me. So don't get stuck on the problem, but focus on the solution. And my mind automatically starts doing that. Whenever I get an injury, I'm looking at, okay, so this part of my body is injured right now, but what can I do? So I always find things to work around. Which keeps me going, so I don't get stuck in those thought loops and get depressed, you know. But maybe someone who hasn't developed that mindset might get depressed and stay in that frustration. But for me, since I don't fight for money or fame, it's not important for me to fight. It's just my passion. So I really want to put on a good performance, because I'm doing this without having to do it. I don't have a family that needs the fight money to survive or something that maybe some other fighter coming from harder upbringings have. Um, so that's also, um, what's the word? It's like something that takes away the pressure of me having to fight and having to do this, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't have that pressure, because martial arts is a lifestyle to me. I don't just fight, I'm also a teacher, I also run a gym, I'm a coach. I do many other things surrounding martial arts, so it's still in my 24/7 schedule, you know, just in different areas. So when I can't fight, I can focus more on being a coach or something else. But I always look on what's in my control, what can I do, and make the best out of it. So yeah, even though it's frustrating, I found solutions around.
For sure. And have you always been this way, right? Because based on what I've seen from your Instagram as well, I hate to use the word, but you seem like a very woke person, if I'm being honest. Like you
Yeah,
seem very
sure,
aware of what's going on in society, aware of, being
absolutely.
happy, healthy, all that stuff. A lot of what you just said really ties into that.
Yeah.
Have you always been like this? And is it being able to compete in martial arts your whole life? I'm sure it's helped that a lot, right? Having that outlook.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was brought up in a martial art family. My both parents were my teachers, and we had this family business, which is a martial arts center. So I was always around this kind of mentality, and I took it as a way of life, and I used it in school and other projects um, for success, I guess, and it's become it's become my personality to use these. But we in the traditional martial art, we always separate like mind, body, and spirit, and these need to be in balance. And I can see, if you start late with MMA in your life, maybe you don't have all these concepts, you're just a fighter, you know, you just do the physical part, so it's just body. But then when you go through this kind of scenarios that we just spoke about, that get you frustrated and hopeless and stuff, you need to have a strong mind. So that part needs to be developed as well. And the last part, the spirit, that's like something I really developed more in the last few years, going through hardship in my fights, because I think that's the only way we grow. If everything is too easy and is too comfortable, there's no need for growth, you know.
Yeah.
So we only get better by, yeah, by by going through these harder periods in our lives. And I think whatever you do in one area, you can reflect that in other parts of your life. So that's why I say martial arts is a way of life, and it's not a sport to me, if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And Combat Academy, right? Speaking of your
Mm.
family, is that run by your family?
Yeah, so it's mostly me and my mom, actually. She is in charge of the karate, the more traditional side, and I'm in charge of MMA and Thai boxing. And then we have also a big group of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So these four martial arts share the same center.
I just got to say, that's incredible because, you know, you meet a lot of fighters and maybe the dad was a martial artist or maybe the mom was and not the dad, but never both, honestly. Like, you never see, it's rare to see both your parents. That's actually crazy, man.
Yeah. They actually met at a karate seminar back in the days. That's how they got together.
Yeah. I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned family again. Your brother Jesse Enkamp, very successful YouTube channel. I think he's got like over 600,000 subscribers, and I never knew about this. Incredible.
Yeah.
How long has he had the channel, man? And did you guys ever think, or did he ever think it would come up to be this size, this big?
I don't think so. So he's always been very passionate with karate. He's 2 years older than me, so he started doing karate as soon as he could walk. And as every kid, you know, at certain point in life, you kind of like search after your identity in school and such. And he was always a very introverted kid. He was very interested in reading and writing, and everything about karate was interesting to him. The history, the philosophy, whereas I wasn't as interested as him, but I would like more of the physical part, like just expressing using my body, playing around and stuff. So he started actually writing about karate in a blog at that moment in time when blogs was a big thing before YouTube blew up. And I think he was the first karate blog on the internet. And he actually moved to Okinawa, which is the birthplace of karate in Japan. And he started writing the blog over there. So he wrote about his experiences training at the birthplace of karate. He's just graduated high school at this point. And
he
then
was that into karate that he went over to the birthplace of karate to study.
Yeah, he moved over there because he studied the karate in no, not karate, Japanese language in high school. So he went to study at the university over there as an exchange student. And then he started writing about everything in his free time. And then the blog grew, and then people started asking, I think, about videos. So he started making some instructional videos on YouTube, started that way. And then YouTube really took off, and he was very early on that platform spreading karate.
So the longevity's been on there for a while.
Exactly. He was very good at the timing, I think. He was the right time, you know. So his YouTube channel started growing, and then he left the blog behind because no one would read. Everyone needs this fast form content and just watch things. So he's become really masterful at editing these videos and making a storyline and making them entertaining too. It's not just instructionals anymore. It's like everything is like you watch a small movie. So I'm always surprised seeing how his videos turn out because they're so great, you know, and anyone can watch them. You don't need to be invested in karate. Like your mom or someone else can watch it and think it's very entertaining too. Everyone can get a valuable lesson out of them. And then when I started traveling around and fighting in these big organizations, he would follow me and make a video log. So that's how we started collaborating. And then he would take in my MMA expertise, and I kind of bring a more modern combat sports approach to his more traditional karate side. And it's just a perfect match. And people love to see us collaborate in his videos. So we kind of, instead of competing with each other, we kind of help each other grow.
Yeah. I mean, hey, man, that's the way to do it, right? Why do you got to compete against each other, right? Why
you
know? Absolutely. So let me ask you, when you look at your MMA, and I got a couple more questions, man. Thanks for the time. When you look at your MMA journey, right? You moved around a lot. It seems like you wanted to learn from as many good places as you can, right? I feel like that's the best approach you could take. I mean, I'm not a fighter or anything, but just from the outside. And you look at some of the top fighters on the planet, they do that as well. How
Yeah,
important
yeah.
is it for you to do that, to travel the world, to improve as much as you can, as opposed to just being in one place forever?
Mm. Yeah, so in Japan, in karate, they have this mindset they call Shoshin, which means like beginner's mind, if we translate it. So always having an open mind to that you can learn from everyone. So even a beginner can do something, and I'm thinking about maybe that would work, because uh, when I started with MMA, it was such a young sport here in Sweden. It wasn't developed, so it's hard to know, are we doing the right things here in our gym? What do other people know? And there wasn't a lot of MMA gyms to go to or travel around, so I would go to other martial arts. I would go to Greco-Roman wrestling, and then I would do Sanda, which is like Chinese kickboxing, and then I would
Yeah.
do Muay Thai,
And not many
and
people do that one, right?
no, and but I think that was at a certain point of time, because this sport is developing so fast. So today you can go to a really high level MMA gym and learn the complete art straight away. But when I started, this was in 2009. It was not mixed martial arts, it was separate martial arts, SMA. So you would have fight a Thai boxer who learned some submissions, or you would fight a judo guy who learned to box.
Right.
So they would base their fighting style around their previous martial art. But today, when you can start with everything, you can base your fighting style around your genetics instead. Are you long and lanky? Maybe you should use your reach. Or you're short and explosive, maybe you should go hard in the first round and finish fast. Yeah, based on your genetics, I guess. So when I was
Yeah.
just taking my first steps into this MMA journey, I needed to look outside of the Swedish borders. So I would travel to, so my brother went after high school, he went to Japan. I went to Thailand. So I wanted to learn Thai boxing, and MMA was also starting to grow there. So I went to Tiger Muay Thai, and I stayed at that camp for 2 months, just training every day. I had my first professional fight over there, 18
Yeah.
years old. And then I realized that the sport has come so much further in the United States. So instead of going to Asia, I would start going to United States, and I went
Sure.
all over the States, West Coast and East Coast, to learn from the best. So I've been to New York and to Montreal and to LA and San Diego. Just if I learned about a new MMA gym that was supposed to be really good, I wanted to go and check it out. So I took this knowledge with me back to Sweden, and today we know what martial arts is. We have MMA is, and we have such a high technical level in Sweden. So I don't feel the need anymore to go anywhere else. Plus, I feel I have the best coach in the world right at home here with Omar Boish, who's also been around the world training just like I did in Japan and the US.
So
Yeah,
you
so I
feel good
guess
now where you're
I'm
at, right?
yeah, absolutely. And at this point, I've been doing so much and learning so much. So it's more about just tailoring it to my next fight, because I know what I'm good at, and I just need to game plan instead of just adding on a bunch of new techniques all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
certain point in your career where you go into that shift, like, okay, now I know everything. What do I need to focus on? And then you never stop learning, of course, never stop developing, but
Sure.
you just switch your focus a bit.
I gotta say, man, the way you approach it, you have a very interesting perspective at approaching this whole thing. Like, you brought up a lot of stuff that I honestly have never thought of before. And I gotta say,
That's
you're very
cool.
well spoken as well. I think if you ever wanted to get into talking about fighting, analyzing, I think you have a good future in it.
Cool.
One
I
last
appreciate
question,
that.
man. And I
Yeah.
don't say this to just anyone, by the way, so I'm not
Sure.
over
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So any final message to the fans that you have out there, man? Anybody? I mean, we obviously know you got the surgery coming up, you got the recovery, but for anyone, that's a fan of you, that's followed you and your story, any messages to them as regards to your future and all that?
Yeah. So It ain't over until it's over. And for me, you know, I think I will keep doing this for as long as I live. And whether it's fighting in Bellator, or if it's traveling the world to do seminars, or just growing my martial art gym here in Sweden, only the future will, you know, reveal that. So
Yeah.
I just look at the next step ahead of me, and right now it's just getting back in there with another fight after my body is 100%, so I can make justice not only to myself but to all the fans who are watching. And I really have a great fan base, because they're super supportive. And when I look at the accounts of very big fighters, they get a lot of different messages. There's a lot of haters and a lot of fans, but I only have so much love in my comment section, so I'm very grateful for that, and they're very understanding. And since I have a lifetime approach of martial arts, I don't want to take any fast decisions that I will regret afterwards. Maybe I go into a fight injured, and then I won't be able to use that body part for the rest of my life, you know. So
Yeah.
It's a marathon and not a sprint, and I think that's a valuable lesson that people can take into their own lives, because everything is so fast paced today. We want quick results. Everything is moving so fast in society today. So if you have your own goals with your training or body or health or career or anything, don't think about where you want to be in a month or even 3 months. Where do you want to see yourself in a year from now, or even long? You know, what's your long-term goal? I think we should look at life long-term, and not look after these quick results, because that's just a good way of burning yourself out, you know. Move slow and steady, and enjoy the ride, enjoy the process. It's not about the results, it's about the process.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I guess
Absolutely,
that's
man.
my message.
Oliver, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really enjoyed
My
catching
pleasure.
up with you to see where you're at. Glad things are going well for you. Good luck in your surgery. Good luck on the
Thank you.
way back, like you said. And we're excited to see what lies in the future, man. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.